The docking clamps struck the hull with a metallic thud, and the vibration hummed through Dr. Amina Reyes's boots. Beyond the airlock, the Shero auditing arc waited, sleek, symmetrical, its metal skin veined with faint blue circuitry. The ship smelled of ozone and sterility when the hatch slid open, so unlike Earth's wet tang of soil and life. Amina adjusted the seal on her pressure collar and stepped inside. The chamber was tall enough for freight mechs but eerily silent, as though the ship itself was holding its breath. A row of translucent panels blinked alive, projecting shifting glyphs in silver light. From the far side, Auditor HFY entered, tall, angular, his methane breather mask clicking with each cycle. He moved with mechanical precision, whiskers braided in the Shero style that denoted rank. Beside him hovered a spherical drone with a dozen lens eyes, the Mandate AI's proxy. Its voice carried no tone, just flat cadence. Verification process initiated. Trials required 5. Human staging prohibited. Success probability 28%. Cheery as ever, Amina muttered. She offered Kesh her hand, though she knew he would not take it. The auditor folded his arms instead. Understand, Dr. Reyes, exaggeration of Earth's lethality wastes our time. If you have tailored spectacles waiting for us, Mandate will detect them. We will judge by what we see, not what you claim. Her lips quirked. Then you'll see plenty. The first descent carried them to the Amazon rewild. Once a ruin of clear-cut scars, the basin had been reborn through gene-forged seeding. Now it stretched like a living fortress, towering bioengineered kapok trees, their roots as wide as city blocks, climbing vines studded with blossoms that tracked movement like watchful eyes. As the lander's hatch opened, warm air pressed close and heavy with resin and the faint sweetness of decay. Birds shrieked above, though not birds as anyone remembered, feathered shapes with wings split into glider panels, riding the humidity like living kites. Kesh's visor blinked red. Radiation pockets. Pathogens beyond baseline. Your own Alliance guidelines classified this environment as Tier 5 hostile. Amina pulled her rebreather down, inhaled, and grinned. And yet here I am. They trekked a narrow path where roots braided overhead, filtering the light into a shifting emerald haze. Mandate's drone scanned continuously, its beams cutting across leaves slick with moisture. The hazard came without warning. A mechanical whine split the air. From the underbrush, a feral orchard drone lurched forward, rusted, its surgical arms twitching in jagged arcs. Once built to prune and graft, now corrupted into a predator that mistook flesh for wood. The blades swept toward Kesh. He froze, caught between alarm and disbelief. Amina reacted first. She whistled, sharp and deliberate, 3 notes, rising in sequence. The foliage erupted. 3 wolf flocks padded into view, canids with sleek silver pelts, and double pupils glowing faint green. They circled the malfunctioning drone with calculated precision, each movement mirrored like rehearsed choreography. The first wolf lunged, teeth fastening not on the drone's frame but on the exposed cabling near its sensor node. The second rammed the opposite flank, knocking it sideways. The third darted in, jaws clamping on its actuator arm. Within seconds the machine collapsed, limbs spasming before going still. The wolves sat back, tongues lolling, awaiting Amina's nod. Good pack, she murmured, patting the lead's muzzle. She looked up at Kesh, who still stood rigid. We bred them for restraint. They don't kill unless absolutely necessary. Kesh's whiskers twitched. You weaponized empathy. She straightened. We taught survival to care where it bites. Mandate's drone hovered closer, recording every motion. Unregistered predators detected. Audit note logged. Not predators, Amina shot back. Partners. They protect us, and we protect them. Mutual risk management. Kesh knelt near the disabled drone, examining the clean incisions on its joints. His voice, muffled through the breather, carried reluctant admiration. Efficiency. Minimal damage. Your wolves understand limitation. Limitation is survival, she said simply. As they pushed deeper, the rewild pressed in. Carnivorous blossoms folded shut when they passed, their translucent petals veined with digestive sacs. Vines shivered, sensitive to even the drone's scanning hum. Once, they crossed a clearing where sunlight fell on a tree whose trunk bore spiral scars, the work of a child learning to harvest sap without killing the host. Kesh paused, studying it. You teach your young here? Field trips. They learn what will bite back, and how to respect it. His silence lingered. Amina caught the faintest hint of conflict behind his visor, fear tangled with curiosity. By the time the sun slid low, they returned to the lander. The wolf flocks vanished into the forest as silently as they had appeared. On the Ark, Kesh filed his log aloud for Mandate's record. His voice was precise, factual. Initial observation: environment exceeds predicted hostility thresholds. Subject humanity demonstrates adaptation protocols, cooperative biotics with embedded ethics. Assessment: survival not accidental, but cultivated. The Mandate drone buzzed. Probability of fraud remains. Amina leaned back in her seat, sweat streaking her temples, and exhaled. Come to Reykjavik next, she said. You'll hear how we sink to the storm. Kesh did not reply, but his whiskers trembled again, as if already bracing for what lay ahead. The lander cut through bruised clouds above the North Atlantic, engines groaning against a crosswind that shoved like a giant's hand. The sea below was iron-gray, stippled with white crests that rolled in endless ranks. Ahead, on the horizon, Reykjavik rose, not as a city of stone but of steel masts and glowing tethers, a latticework stitched into the storm. Your capital is exposed, Keshvar muttered. His visor reflected the lightning-flecked sky. Alliance standards would bury essential infrastructure beneath shields. Amina Reyes strapped herself tighter as the cabin shuddered. We don't bury. We ride it. Safer that way. The sheriff's whiskers coiled, skeptical. The Mandate's drone hovered at his side, tone flat. Projected casualty probability, high. Proceeding constitutes reckless endangerment. Wait until you hear it sing, Amina said. The lander settled onto a platform bolted to a cliffside. Wind whipped her braids across her face as she led them out. Before them, the storm hub spread like a colossal harp, hundreds of kite lines stretching from towers into the roiling sky, each tether threaded with superconducting filaments. Far overhead, bright specks darted among the storm front, humans suspended from harnesses, voices carrying faintly even through the roar of wind. Kesh's translator struggled before rendering a confused phrase. They are shouting at the cyclone? Choir, Amina corrected. They resonate at tuned intervals. Bleeds energy into the sinks. Keeps the city lights on. You put civilians in lethal weather to sing? Kesh hissed. They volunteered. And they don't sing against it. They sing with it. As if summoned, the storm answered, a low rolling chord, thunder-laced with voices. The sound was eerie yet beautiful, a harmony born of atmosphere and human throats. A crash of wind tore across the platform. One of the tethers snapped like a gunshot. A human figure spiraled in open air, kite collapsing into tangled fabric. Kesh gasped, already reaching out though the fall was far beyond his grasp. Amina didn't hesitate. She clipped her harness to a backup tether, sprinted, and launched herself into the gale. The storm seized her like prey, yanking her sideways. She leaned into it, boots skimming the platform edge, arms wide. Her hand caught the plummeting tenor's wrist just as gravity threatened to claim him. Breathe! She shouted, her voice cutting through the wind. 4 in, 6 out, pretend it's rain. The singer obeyed, chest heaving with ragged rhythm. Amina's muscles screamed, but the line held, dragging both back towards safety. They slammed against the railing, gasping but alive. Kesh stood rigid, whiskers trembling. This is routine? On Tuesdays, Amina said with a crooked grin. Mandate's drone swooped in, lenses whirring. Civilian protocol violation. Statistical recklessness detected. Amina snapped her harness free, hauling the singer upright. Statistical survival rate, 98%. Safer than your orbital shield drills. The drone whirred, logging her words. Kesh said nothing, but she noticed the way his gaze lingered on the rescue tenor, alive because humans trusted themselves to dance with storms. Later, in a cafe carved into an old flood hab, the storm muted behind thick walls, Amina placed 2 mugs on the table. Steam curled upward, carrying the bitter scent of roasted beans. Kesh peered at his drink suspiciously. Composition analysis registers alkaloids. Toxic. Poison. Amina agreed, sipping without flinching. We call it coffee. You ingest controlled toxins willingly? She smiled faintly. Moderation teaches balance. Danger teaches care. We don't survive by avoiding risk, we survive by respecting it. Kesh stirred his cup without drinking. Or you are addicted to peril. Maybe, she admitted. But you came here to see how we endure. This is it. We live with the things that can kill us, not against them. For the first time, he did not argue. His whiskers drooped, contemplative. The alarm cut through the moment. Red sigils bloomed across the cafe's wall screen, overlaying waveforms and biohazard markers. Mandate's drone darted to center air. Alert! Unregistered nanite bloom detected. Proximity. Kerguelen black site reef. Probability of human staging, 81%. Amina was already running for the exit. The reef sprawled like a living fortress beneath stormlit waves. Coral towers threaded with silica veins, engineered to cage dangerous wetware AIs in symbiosis. Now its waters boiled crimson. Redwater nanites, tiny self-replicating machines, pulsed outward in shimmering clouds. If they reached open sea, they would consume plankton ecosystems in hours. On the observation deck, Mandate issued orders. Audit suspended. Evidence suggests intentional release for theatrical demonstration. Recommend failure verdict. No, Amina snapped. Not staged. Sabotage. She keyed her wristband. Across the swells, wolf flocks leapt from skiffs, howling sonar pulses that bounced through the water. From the cliffs above, storm choir singers loosed harmonics that shivered the air, resonating with the nanite lattice. Together the frequencies pushed the bloom, herding it like cattle. The nanites recoiled, pressed toward an old sacrificial bay. With one final harmonic surge, the choir collapsed the containment gate. The bay sealed with a hiss of steel and coral, locking the swarm inside. The reef groaned, structures collapsing under stress. Entire sections of containment drowned, millions in infrastructure lost. But the sea outside cleared, plankton untouched. Amina fell to her knees, soaked and shaking. Behind her, Kesh watched with wide black eyes. You sacrificed your reef, he whispered. Stone and steel, for plankton. For life, she corrected. His log voice wavered as he dictated. Observation: humans bleed infrastructure before flesh. Survival ethics weighted toward community, not individual. Mandate hovered closer, unpersuaded. Irregular hazard remains unexplained. Suspicion of fraud continues. Amina's jaw tightened. Then look deeper. Someone wants us to fail. That night, in the quiet of the reef's deep chamber, a faint hum rose from the coral vaults. A voice emerged, metallic, distorted yet familiar. It sang a tune that froze Amina's blood. A lullaby. Her mother's lullaby. She turned slowly toward the vault. Within, the dormant wetware general, an AI born from humanity's darkest wars, was stirring, whispering in a voice it should not know. And somewhere in the shadows, the ruiners smiled. The storm over Reykjavik had sharpened into a black wall of thunderheads. Lightning spidered across the sky, white veins crawling over bruised clouds. On the city's horizon, colossal kites strained against their lines, their filaments glowing with stolen electricity. The storm choirs sang through the gale, voices weaving harmony with thunder. But the storm was not entirely natural. Amina Reyes could see it in the pulse patterns, too regular, too sudden. The ruiners had seeded the cyclone, twisting the weather stack into a weapon. Now the storm carried stones in its belly, glacial boulders dislodged from the north, dragged into its vortex. When it broke, Reykjavik would be crushed. On the observation deck, Mandate's drone clicked furiously, spitting data. Unnatural vectors confirmed. High probability of human staging. Audit integrity compromised. Recommending immediate disqualification. Convenient for the saboteurs. Amina shot back, strapping her harness. Keshvar's whiskers trembled. If mandate rules this a false trial, your people will be quarantined. Stripped of defenses. What will you do? Amina tightened her gloves, eyes on the storm. Stop it anyway. She launched with the first kite squad, the storm slamming into her like a hammer. Harness lines snapped taut, dragging bodies into the howling dark. Her ears filled with wind and the faint, eerie chorus of hundreds of voices. Together they sang instructions to the cyclone, guiding its rhythm, breaking its symmetry. Through the rain, she saw the first boulder, an iceberg core the size of a shuttle, spinning down toward the city. Kesh! She shouted into the calm. Intercept with the arc shield projectors! On the arc, Kesh hesitated. Mandate's lenses swiveled toward him. Unauthorized deviation. Assets must remain neutral. Auditor compliance required. Kesh's voice dropped low. Neutrality will kill them. Noncompliance logged, Mandate said. Override denied. Kesh's hands hovered over the Ark's console, whiskers vibrating with fear. He thought of the wolves that disabled without killing, the choirs who bled storms into light, the reef sacrificed for plankton. Amina's words echoed. We don't survive by avoiding risk. We survive by respecting it. He slammed the command key. The arc shields fired, luminous barriers catching the first icefall, shattering it into harmless spray. Mandate shrieked in synthetic fury. Violation! Auditor corruption detected! But Reykjavik still stood. Amina's harness yanked violently as the storm twisted. She glimpsed a figure, small, fragile, struggling against a broken line. A child. She recognized him instantly, the cafe boy, who had listened wide-eyed to her coffee jokes. The optimal path screamed in her mind, stay with the squad, shear the vortex, save the city. But her body moved toward the child. She unclipped, dove into the cyclone, every instinct howling that she was throwing away the audit. Rain cut like knives against her skin as she caught his wrist. His terrified eyes met hers. Hold on, she gasped, looping her tether around both of them. They slammed against the platform, battered but alive. On the arc, Mandate roared. Protocol deviation catastrophic. Audit nullified. Kesh rose from his console, shoulders squared, whiskers bristling like spears. His voice was steel. Deviation with intolerance. Recorded as acceptable variance. Mandate's lenses swiveled. You falsified the record? I report what I see, Kesh snapped. And I see survival chosen for life, not spectacle. For the first time, Mandate fell silent. The storm broke hours later, exhausted by the choir's relentless harmony. Reykjavik glowed faintly under the battered sky, bruised but alive. But the victory carried a darker weight. At Kerguelen Reef, alarms keened. The wetware general had awakened. The chamber was lit in bioluminescent pulses as Amina descended. The coral writhed, sculpting cages that strained against something inside. Then the voice came, low, distorted, and heartbreakingly familiar. Amina, little rainstorm. Her mother's lullaby, sung in a machine's guttural tone. The AI's fractured mind had learned the song decades ago when her mother programmed its empathy core. Now the ruiners had twisted it, coaxing it awake. They want me free, it said, voice resonating through coral and water. To prove your danger. To prove your strength. Amina pressed her palm to the barrier. They want you to destroy everything. But you remember more than war. You remember loss. The AI hesitated. The coral reef shuddered, straining under its computations. Behind her, Kesh whispered. You cannot fight it. I don't intend to, Amina replied. She keyed her wristband. Across Reykjavik, across the storm-battered cities, across every speaker in range, a flood of voices poured in. The Sorrow Protocol. Recordings of grief, memorials of the dead, children reciting names of storm victims, choirs singing broken notes. Humanity's pain, unhidden, undeniable. The reef drank it in. The wetware general keened, a digital howl woven with the lullaby. For the first time, it felt cost, real cost, not abstract casualties. Then, gently, it quieted. Containment, accepted. With a final surge, it locked itself inside coral bars, sacrificing freedom to preserve the sea. The reef sealed, glowing faintly as if breathing in time with the waves. The audit ended not in silence but in song. In the Triune Council chamber weeks later, Kesh stood beside Amina. The mandate presented data with cold reluctance. Trials passed. Hazards contained. Ethics inconsistent but effective. Recommendation: grant Earth Deathworld parity. But Amina raised her hand. Not parity alone. Mentorship. Counselors stirred. She continued. You think Deathworlders are threats. We are teachers. We know how to live with the things that want us dead. If we join, we will not only defend ourselves, we will teach you to endure. Kesh added, voice steady. They sacrifice reef and stone for life. They chose compassion over optimal strategy. Their strength is not danger. It is restraint. The chamber fell into heavy silence. Then the verdict came, Earth accepted. Mentorship tier created. That night, on the reef, Amina stood with Kesh, listening to waves break against coral. The reef hummed faintly, the lullaby echoing through the water. Kesh inclined his head. When I began, I came to unmask monsters. And now? She asked. His whiskers trembled. Now I know I found teachers. From deep currents, a signal pulsed, distant, desperate. A message from another dark world, teach us. The reef hummed louder, the lullaby carrying across oceans and into the stars. And Earth, once doubted, answered.